Problems. Speckles on the lens. Speckles on the lens. Take a tissue with nice wood fiber in it. Clean up the speckles. How's that? Good. No more speckles. Alright. Problem today is the Weasel is really slowly cold cranking. Charge the battery. No difference. Plug in the block heater. No difference. Fluid filmed everything under the hood so it shouldn't corrode like the alternator and the pulleys. Belt flipped off 10 times in a row. Nice, juicy, slurpy fluid film. So I'm going to show you how slow it cold cranks, and I'm going to clean the battery cables with a special 9-volt cigarette lighter plug I just made. So you'll hear how slow she cranks. Ready? Crank her up. She was plugged in all night. It's above freezing, back to normal November temperature. Didn't make a difference, even though the engine was burning hot. So I think this connection right here is defective. Yep. And if I disconnect it, I'll lose my presets on my junk Pioneer Walmart $88 radio. I've got the directions right there, how to reset everything. Yep, I got a hole in the dash too. Junk. But it's such a hard radio reset, and if you go into the wrong mode, it takes 23 seconds to go back in default mode. So I'm going to drive around the block and clean the battery connections with my lighter plug for a, oh, look at that, little red light's on. I'm going to plug it into the cigarette lighter, turn off my dome lamp. So I don't drain this little 9-volt battery. I'm going to plug it in. I'm going to preserve the memory in my radio. Lights on for safety. And clean those battery cables and not lose all my presets. So we're going to go for a little drive, and I'll fix this battery connection issue up with this little tinker toy that I just soldered together. So, all plugged in. Lights on. Guess it's time to disconnect the battery. Oops, forgot to get my tripod out of my pocket. Nice shiny fluid film protection. I was just reading on the computer about a guy in Alberta. That's it. No more contact radio. I cleaned these cables even though someone stripped off the plastic on them. I cleaned them. The battery's less than a year old. I don't know why it would crank slow. There's nothing corroded here. If the cable end was corroded to death, it would just bust right off. These are all nice and polished and shiny. There's nothing wrong here. And I have the best system for attaching. Bolt, you put a bolt into the battery and you tighten the nut. That way you're not tightening so much against the lead as you're pulling on it. You're not tightening through it. These crappy Walmart batteries don't take to the threads aren't molded very well. You barely put any lead into their battery terminals inside the battery. So there's nothing wrong here. I'm gonna put one battery back on at a time and see how it cranks. Try isolate this problem. So now I'm running just off one battery with the original cable, but normally the cables are sitting on top of each other with a little lead spacer in between, because there's supposed to be all kinds of plastic to protect against corrosion, but it works if there'd be some grease in there, but since there's no grease, it corrodes inside the plastic. So put this over here. We'll crank this baby up. Disconnect my lighter. Burn up my battery. Not sure what would happen to it, but it's disconnected. Crank her up! Crank her up! Still no good. Tell right away. So I'm going to reconnect my lighter plug. Before I forget. Listening to a repeat broadcast on This American Life. They're talking about attack turkeys. Yep. So now I'm going to vice grip these two cables together. Don't go away, I got to get a nut. I'm not going to vice grip them all nothing together. I'm coming. I didn't abandon you. Oh, this is the right size bolt. I think it's too small. Oh, right size. So I'll just nut and bolt these two together instead of vice gripping them. That way I'll run the extra battery, the second battery, on the driver's side. Normally this passenger side powers the passenger side starter. And we'll see how the starter sounds with that battery. Because it did crank more quickly a couple days ago when I did this. I tightened things up and got one quick start out of it, one fast crank. So there we go. I'm going to move the camera to a safer place. Disconnect my power preserver. See if she cranks up. Crank. Rrr, rrr, rrr. Little plugs off. Crank her up. Yeah, pathetic. So both batteries sound the same. Wonder if the starter is bad. Something's definitely not right here. Both batteries are less than a year old and both to die at the same time. Maybe I'll just bring up another battery from the basement. Because it did crank faster a couple days ago when I did this. See now, well, maybe the negative, but there's two negatives. One negative goes to the intake manifold right there, and the other one goes to the back of the alternator. That's tight. It's a double connection here too. One goes to the back of the alternator and one goes across the fan shroud. So if it was bad, it would be smoking, wouldn't it? Seen that. And the negative cable goes right there, which I just had removed and reinstalled when I put my monster alternator bracket on. Guess I'll go in the basement. Fluid film everywhere. Get another battery, but I don't know. Something's wrong, otherwise I gotta put a starter on this thing. Crawl underneath. Luckily there's no rust in my eyes. Fluid film.